everybody. So, who wants to hear a research presentation from a guy dressed in a dinosaur suit? Anyone? All right. Here we go. So this is our annual research presentation on what your customers want, the state of tours, activities, and attractions. We are going to talk about what your customers do, the products they purchase, a few trends, a handful of trends that I think are interesting. We're going to look at the path to purchase, so how travelers plan and book. We're going to look specifically at attractions, some examples there, as well as some examples in tours. And I'm going to spend a couple of minutes talking about the mobile booker, because we spend so much time at Arrival thinking about mobile and booking and last minute, and what does that mean? So I want to point out some special traits about those people who book on their phones. So whenever I do a research presentation, I always like to highlight methodology for those of you who want to have some context of where this all comes from. So we surveyed 1,000 US travelers. This is statistically representative of the US traveler population. So these are people who traveled at least 75 miles from home, stayed overnight for leisure or personal purposes, and they participated in one of many, many, many qualifying experiences or activities. I do want to acknowledge our partnership and the support of US Travel's National Council of Attractions and Experiences. Without their support, this research would not be possible, and they've been great partners since last year. For those of you who may not know, they are part of US Travel, which is a trade association for travel and tourism, advancing the interests of attractions and experiences in the US around the world, and there's more information there. So, what do your customers want? So if you folks have seen me do this before, then you know it's everything. So travelers, they do all sorts of things on a trip, so you can just see if you count up all of the percentages from all of these kind of macro or Uber categories, it's way over 100%. It's actually 400, 500, 600%. The average number of experiences that travelers purchase on a trip is between 6 and 7. I want to highlight here in particular 4 of the top 6 are what we would call macro attraction categories. So 85% of travelers on a trip will visit an attraction. And so what are those categories? You probably know. They're natural attractions, they are museums, historical sites and landmarks and monuments, zoos, aquariums, and of course, amusement parks. Now, the next big category is activities. So this is, well, basically everything that's not an attraction and not a tour. There is a bit of gray area. So activities are basically anything else. So here are some examples, and boy, this is a really tough category to get our arms around because folks like you keep creating new types of activities. So there's lots and lots and lots here. For example, hiking all the way at the left, and then as you go all the way down, you can see a lot of different categories. Just one thing to point out here, even when you look at categories that are maybe 6, 7, 8% of the traveler population, just as a little bit of context, there's about between 160, 170 million US travelers, so 6 to 7% of that is not a market to ignore. The last category, of course, is tours, and as I alluded to in my presentation on Tuesday, more travelers than not don't do tours, and so we'll delve into that a little bit shortly. But first, I want to highlight shopping, because we see consistently that shopping is one of the most popular activities that travelers engage in. And it's tough for us to categorize it, quite frankly, because it can be like a transient activity, like you go on a trip and you just do some shopping, but there are also planned, organized shopping excursions and experiences, and there's also shopping as a part of what you do when you're visiting an attraction or you're on a tour. So what I wanted to look at here specifically is the ancillary or add-on revenue opportunity for tour activity and attraction operators. And so what we're going to see here is this is the percentage of travelers who took a tour and bought something extra, not food related. And the same thing for attractions and for activities. So it could be a souvenir, it could be a tchotchke or a t-shirt, or it could be a convenience item like if it's sunny and they're at an outdoor attraction and they want to get some suntan lotion or some sunglasses. But the point I wanted to make here is you can see 70%, just under 70% of tour takers are buying something while they're on the tour or around the tour, a little bit less for attraction activity goers. But the point is, if 3 out of 5 of your travelers, of your customers, are not spending a couple of extra bucks with you, then you're underperforming the market. So, tour takers. So let's actually spend a minute and talk about that group that I promised, those non-tour takers. Why don't people take tours? So there's 2 fundamental reasons. The first, they simply want to experience a destination by themselves. And the second top reason is they don't like people, or they don't like traveling with people anywhere. They don't like groups. So I call these folks solo explorers. And then what I wanted to understand is, what can we do? Is there some way that we can kind of get them over into our camp? Is there a way that we can convince them, wow, there is something to kind of touring and experiences? Well, here are the results. For 30% of those folks, no way, no how. It's simply not going to happen. So we asked a question looking at a whole range of options, of different ways to kind of get around the idea of a tour, and they were simply a no, 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 no to everything. However, half said they would consider or be open to the idea of a private tour or an intimate tour. But the sense I got was this is kind of like the untour. So what does the untour look like? So how can we create an experience that's localized or custom, but does not have the connotations of what a tour might be? And so we're going to do some more work on this, and when we release our full report from this research, we'll delve into that a bit more deeply. But for half of those non-tour takers, there is, I believe, a product opportunity, but it's a bit different from that conventional idea of what we consider to be a tour. The last piece I wanted to highlight here, mobile self-guided apps. So 15% of those non-tour takers said that they would consider doing a self-guided app or tour. So this is quite interesting. There seems to be a window or an opportunity there for those non-tour takers to experience a destination and enhance their experience through a mobile self-guided app. Just one additional side point as well. Tour takers, actually the percentage is even higher. So for those of you who are tour operators and are considering, well, should I look at kind of the mobile self-guided tour experience? In fact, tour takers are even more likely to consider using a mobile self-guided app for a tour experience. Okay, planning and shopping for attractions. So let's delve in here a little bit. So first, I just want to look at some basics around the ways in which travelers are looking up, shopping, planning their attraction experience and deciding which one they're going to go to. And this is pretty much the same as what we saw last year, just the numbers have moved up a little bit, which is not too surprising. So the key takeaway here is, look, digital channels are first and foremost in how travelers think about and plan the attraction that they are going to visit. And I'll also highlight at the far right that friends and family via social media, that's really a third digital channel as well. Now, I want to look at the booking window in this slide. So there's a few things that are going on here. So I want to take just a minute to walk you through this. So here we're breaking this out by attraction type, as you can see if you look along the x-axis at the bottom. And if you kind of go from left to right, you'll see it kind of increases in terms of advanced booking. So booking the attraction at least a month in advance, and then from right to left, there's more same-day bookings. So it's kind of a very interesting kind of dynamic and some pretty significant differences between, say, amusement parks and museums. So what's going on? Like, why would we see such profound differences in the booking window, that path to purchase, for different types of attractions? So as we delved into it more deeply, and we looked at both the business model, like the structure of the business, as well as the importance of the attraction in the hierarchy of priorities of a traveler's trip planning, we see two things really emerge. So the first, those attractions that have more kind of supply constraint or more capacity constraint, or maybe they're more popular. There's a concern from a traveler's perspective. Will I be able to get access to that attraction when I want to? Then they're much more likely to book those attractions well in advance. And if you look at the examples, amusement parks, natural attractions, popular sites and landmarks, is going to be more advanced booking. The other issue is, where does that experience or that attraction, where is it in the traveler's sort order, if you will? It's in my hierarchy of priorities. When I take a trip with my family, there are certain things we absolutely must do, and I'm going to organize those things in advance. There are other things that are nice to have if I have a few extra hours or I'm looking for something to do, and I might add them on at the last minute, but I don't want to have to commit to it well in advance. And that's what we see if we think about the museum experience, let's say, versus the amusement park experience, as an example. So a couple of really important things for us to think about and operators to think about as a takeaway. First, you have to really be honest with yourself about where your experience, and by the way, generally speaking, this trend applies, although I'm giving the attraction example here, this trend applies to tours, it applies to activities. So you have to be honest with yourself about where the experience fits in the hierarchy of travelers' priorities. Some of us, and some of you are number one in your destination, but I bet most are not. You're 3, you're 4, maybe you're number 8. You have to be honest with yourself about where you are in the marketplace that you're in, and then tailor your marketing activity, your strategy, to suit how those travelers think about you and when they're going to book. Okay, let's look at tour booking. So, and again, I'll go through some general trends, and broadly these are applicable across all categories, but I wanted to give some examples from attractions and then some examples from tours. So first, we're just going to look at booking channels. So here you can see the number one booking channel for how travelers are booking tours is directly with the tour operator offline, followed by computer, mobile phone, travel agents, and vacation packages, or what I call kind of traditional travel trade, then hotel and a visitor office or visitor center ticket office in destination. A couple of things to point out here. So actually, if you were to combine computer and mobile phone together, that would be larger than direct with the tour operator offline. So I guess you could say online in total is larger than direct offline with operator. But I also want to point out that there are lots of different channels here. So this is not like a one-channel marketplace or a 1 or 2-channel marketplace. Depending upon the traveler, where they're coming from, the type of trip, travelers are using different channels, and so you should think about, is your channel distribution strategy optimized for your business and for your marketplace and the types of travelers that are coming in to your destination. So the next thing that I wanted to highlight here is just some differences around channels to get a sense of what's going on across each of these channels. Are there different travelers booking in one channel versus another? So first, those folks who book via a desktop computer, they spend $183, so average on a tour. Now let's look at mobile. Wow, significantly greater, $265 on average. So that's something to highlight. Directly offline with an operator, well, we're kind of back to desktop. And remember, again, direct offline with an operator and then also on a computer are really the two largest channels. And so those are, I would say, the largest mass market channels. And then here's the last channel, travel agents and vacation packages. Look at that. What's going on there? So this is a very interesting finding. So I think what's happening here is, while the travel agency kind of channel is significantly smaller than it was, say, 10, 15, 20 years ago, but there's been a real transformation in the travel agency community. So they've gone from kind of a mass market kind of travel seller to a business that is really focusing on niche, kind of luxury, upscale, long-haul type of travel. So when a family or travelers are booking through a travel professional, they are booking those upscale trips, they're big picture trips or kind of long-haul trips that are really important to the family or for that traveler, and they're spending a lot more. So even though the total volume opportunity for that traditional travel trade or travel agent channel may not be as great, the actual value per transaction is significantly greater. Okay, probably a big question that you all have looking at these results is when you look at kind of computer and mobile, so what about within online, so online travel agency versus direct operator websites? So we did see a bit of shift this year versus last year. So we did this study last year. It was about 32%, I believe. It was like direct operator website, and about 68% with online travel agencies. When we did the survey again this year, it had shifted. OTAs appear to have gained fairly significantly. 4 out of 5 travelers said they booked their tour with an online travel agency. So this is pretty consistent with other research that we have done and things that we've been tracking. Online travel agencies have been, for a couple of years now, for some time, the fastest growing channel within this sector. And so this begs the question, why? Like, what's going on? In particular, why are travelers choosing one channel versus another? So there are really just 2 kind of fundamental reasons behind this. It's price and it's convenience. They're simply saying, this is where I found the tour. I found it at a lower price. Now, this raises a couple of interesting questions, right? So the first is, with price, if I'm an operator and I have a lower price on my website, why would the traveler be saying it's a lower price on the OTA? But the fact is, the traveler doesn't really know. They very often don't make a distinction between the brand. They may not even know if they're booking directly on an operator website or on an OTA. What's happening is they're going to the OTA and they're seeing one tour or another tour, and they are comparing the tours directly. What we have to think about as an operator, as a marketplace, is I think historically the view of operators of distribution channels and OTAs is, I'm going to give my inventory to an OTA, and there's the pricing and so forth, and I'm going to set it up, and I'm going to go. But the fact is, OTAs, just like Google, it's a competitive marketplace. And so we have to operate in those marketplaces as though we are competing with other tours, with other experiences. And so we have to work each OTA as aggressively as we work Google, as we work Facebook, and optimize our listing, our pricing, our display in each OTA as we have in Google and other direct marketing channels. The other piece here around convenience, it's all about ease. I mean, those platforms, those websites that make it super easy to book, if you've heard the term frictionless, instant booking, instant confirmation, as few steps as possible, as easy to discover the products as possible. I mean, you on your websites are competing directly with the largest OTAs in the marketplace, but it's all about speed and ease of use and convenience. Now, I wanted to spend a couple of minutes as well in closing talking about the mobile traveler, because we saw some pretty interesting things. In particular, that those mobile travelers, and there's more and more and more of them every single year, as we saw earlier, they are more valuable, right? They are spending more on each booking than the typical online booker. They also take more tours, so on average, they take 3 tours per trip, which is, I actually thought was quite interesting, quite surprising. As we saw earlier, they spend almost 50% more than desktop computer users, and more than half of them write reviews. On average, about 30% of customers write reviews, but mobile bookers, more than half. So not only are your mobile bookers more just valuable individually, they are taking more tours, they are spending more on a per tour basis, but they are also more influential. They are the ones who are much more likely to leave reviews, to share their experiences, to Instagram it, to connect it, to socialize your brand and your experience. So really important for operators to pay attention to those folks who are coming to you, booking over the phone. Those are the folks that you really want to delight, and make sure they're spreading the gospel about your amazing experiences. So these are just a few of the highlights from the research that we've done. We have lots more to come at ARIVAL.travel. So from all of the dinosaurs at Arrival and the Quinby family, thank you all very much. Lots more to come. Thank you.